Easterly, Mr. Sean D. Fitz, Evan Foot, Tristan Hoffman, Rhea, Micah Carter, and Isaiah Robeson. Thank you so very much to all of my channel members. Your support means the world to me. So, sports memories now. I was actually a little bit shocked that I hadn't already done this video concept, which is the only reason I haven't done this sooner, is because I was convinced that I already had, but no, I hadn't. So, thinking way back, I know that when I was a little kid, like little back before I could really remember, I know at some point my dad took me to a Blazers game back when it was still the Rose Garden, way back in the day, because I'm old. But I have no memories of that. The first sporting event that I can remember, actually there's two of them, but I can't be certain which one happened first. But I want to say this one was the first one, and it was when I was in either elementary or middle school, somewhere between like 3rd grade and 6th grade, somewhere in there. And there was a contest at school to win family tickets to the Portland Beavers minor league baseball team. And the Portland Beavers don't exist anymore. When did they stop existing? Let's see, 2001 to 2010, so somewhere around there was the last time they existed. The most recent collection does unrecognized history of all previous incarnations as its own. Yeah. So it was the minor league affiliate of the San Diego Padres at the time. But I won tickets to that game, and as far as I can remember, that is the first sporting event of which I have any sort of memory or recollection, and all that, unfortunately, all that I can really remember at the time was really disliking it and being bored, and I think we went home sometime in the 6th or 7th inning. We did not finish the game. So early on, at that age, baseball really was not my thing. It actually isn't until the last handful of years that I've actually gotten into baseball, but I don't think that that event really had any impact on that. But I remember that it was me, my dad, and my mom. I think that's it. And they were playing at what is now Providence Park, where the Portland Timbers play. So a number of years later, like over a decade later, when I would go to my first Timbers match, I did sort of have these deja vu flashback moments of being a little kid, and experiencing going to that Portland Beavers game, because the layout, all the seating and everything seems so similar to me. So there's that one, and I am pretty confident that one happened first. And then a few years later, like my tween years, my not yet quite a teenager, so like 11, 12 years old, somewhere like that, my dad and I went down to Eugene Johnson Stadium to watch the Oregon Ducks football team go against the Washington Huskies. And my dad is a big Oregon Ducks fan. That's where he went to college. I would have gone to college there, but I would have had to pay out of state tuition, all this of stuff, it would have been a lot of money compared to what I'm currently paying, or what I did pay. So, but I've still been a Ducks fan just because, growing up around my dad, basically all of his apparel was Ducks apparel. He had the polo shirts, he had the zip-ups, he had the t-shirts, and my dad was wearing all the Ducks gear all the time. And, we went down to a Ducks game. They were playing the Huskies, and I think that was the first sporting event we went to, at least that I'm cognizant of. Again, maybe there's a Blazers game when I was a little kid or something, but I think it was the first sports event that was just he and I. So that was really cool. Both these, I have that connection where I went with my family members, things like that. And my dad and I still reference that game sometimes, like an inside joke, because there was a guy standing either right next to us or like in the row above us or something, but he was close enough to where we could hear him pretty well, and we heard him pretty much the whole game. And he brought a duck call, and he just kept going, "Murr." Like, that's kind of the joke, is he was just making the sound. It sounded like "murr." And he was just non-stop with the duck call. And then any time, like, Washington would do something bad or the Ducks would score, he would just yell out, like, "Yeah, look at those grapes," or "Yeah, take those, you grapes," like, all that sort of thing. So he was definitely not a fan of the Huskies. So that is obviously a rivalry game, not to the level of the Civil War or anything like that, but still a really big rivalry game. So both of those for me have a pretty special place. Just, like I said, family members, and they're kind of foundational for now me as a sports fan, especially the football game. That was my first ever football game. I've actually only been to 2 football games in person. The other one was Seahawks versus the Raiders, and we were actually like 2 seats back from the field there, like super close seats. So that was a really cool game. But I've never really in person seen a sort of like historic moment. I've never been to a playoff game. I've never been in person to see like a championship win or anything like that, but one game that I was at that's really important to me, that's a good memory, is when Carmelo Anthony joined the Portland Trail Blazers a few years ago at this point. I was there at his first home game. Now, I think they played 1 or 2 road games with him before they came back to Portland. But I was there at that first home game. Now, I've said a few times in different places, but Carmelo Anthony is my favorite NBA player of all time. I know that people are like, "Oh, he's not as good as this person, this person." I'm not saying I think he's the best player. I recognize that he has holes in his game, but Carmelo Anthony has long been my favorite player, and I loved watching him in Denver. I loved watching him in New York, and then when he came to Portland, I was like over the moon. And he obviously wasn't peak Melo anymore when he came to Portland, but he still had some really big moments. In a Portland uniform, I still got the Melo, the Melo 00 jersey, all that stuff. And so just for me being a huge Melo fan, going there that first home game, when they announced him in the starting lineup for that game, he got a massive response. It was such a cool moment for me personally, and immediately that became one of my best sporting memories. 2 more I can think of kind of off the top of my head. I should have written this down before I started, and almost certainly I will overlook something. So don't take this video as gospel, certainly. But I was at a Mariners game, and they were playing, I believe, the Minnesota Twins. Now, the game itself was not a good game. The game itself, the Mariners Mariners getting absolutely shellacked. I think they lost by double-digit runs, which is a rare thing in baseball. But there was one play where Daniel Vogelbach went up to bat and he up to the plate, and I think it was like a 1-2 count. And I just turned to my friend who I went to the game with, I looked right at him and I was like, this one's gonna be a home run. And sure enough, fastball down the middle, Vogelbach swung the bat and home run for the Mariners right there. So that's just a great sport memory for me, because that is just, like, how many times do you call a home run? I'm sure if you go to a lot of baseball games, you've done it a few times, but for me, I've only been to 3 baseball games in my entire life in person, and one of them was that Portland Beavers game, and that Seattle Mariners game. And actually, this is another great memory for me. Being in Japan, being at Meiji Jingu Stadium and seeing the Tokyo Yakult Swallows. That was a game the Tokyo Yakult Swallows lost. They got blown out pretty bad by the Fukuoka Sanpei Hawks, but going there in person and seeing my favorite NPB team, and, you know, for those of you who don't follow the Japanese baseball league, it is really, really hard to get any sort of content outside of Japan. Japanese media holders in general are like ruthlessly protective of their intellectual property. It is near impossible to get any sort of video content about the NPB outside of Japan. I've always struggled to watch any amount of games, and most of the way I keep up with the Swallows is through translated news articles and YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff. So going to Tokyo, being in Meiji Jingu Stadium, this ancient, historic stadium that's on its way out, it's going to be demolished, and seeing this team I've loved from afar for many, many years, I've always just been so delighted by the Yakult Swallows, their name, their colors, their jerseys, Sabakuro, the mascot, and seeing Munetaka Murakami, seeing Tetsuda Yamada, seeing Aoki, seeing those guys that I've kind of just heard their names, seeing little highlights of, was really cool. So that's a great sporting memory for me. And then, let's see, so soccer, so the Portland Timbers. I've been to a small handful of Portland Timbers games in my life. This one, it wasn't announced when I bought my tickets, but as we were getting into Providence Park, getting up into the Timbers Army stand, it kind of worked its way through the grapevine that it was going to be Fernando Adi's last game for the Portland Timbers. I think he's going to Nashville or Columbus or something. And Fernando Adi, you know, the fan base, the Timbers Army had always been sort of divided on him. Some people liked him, some people didn't like him. He was never the best player, never the most reliable striker, but I always thought he had a great personality. He always seemed like a good guy. So it somehow worked its way through the grapevine that this was going to be Fernando Adi's last game for the Portland Timbers, and I watched him there score a brace. So 2 goals for Fernando Adi, and that was an absolutely magical experience, being right there in the Timbers Army as that was happening, singing, dancing, chanting, all that stuff. Just an absolutely amazing experience. Now, those are all things that I had happen in person. Just thinking about things that I was like watching on TV amongst friends and things of that nature. I was at one of my best friend's house in that OKC Portland series. We were at his house watching that game 7. The Dame buzzer beater over Paul George, which led to the complete rebuild of the Oklahoma City Thunder. My friend and I, we were in his living room, we were watching the game. We were watching it, we were sitting there, and like, I remember we were standing in his living room, and like we were both kind of pacing around. And what's crazy is, for me, I had such like a roller coaster of emotions there, because I had one of the worst sporting moments of my life happen about 30 seconds prior to that, which was the Golden Knights losing that game against the San Jose Sharks after the 5-minute major. the not a major call, which the NHL actually called, fully and apologized for the bad call and all that, like that whole big thing. But that whole not a major in San Jose Sharks, and the San Jose Sharks tied the game, they win it in overtime. I was watching that on my phone as we were watching Portland versus OKC on TV. So I just watched the overtime goal go in, and so I'm like down in the dumps of depression. Like, I'm like, I just need to get blackout drunk, because like I'm just, as a sports fan, watching that loss happen, I was probably one of the worst sporting moments of my entire life. Second worst. The worst moment of my entire life is that interception and that Russ threw in the Super Bowl. That made me stop watching football for 5 years. So I come off that loss, and then my friend and I are in his living room, and Dame has the ball, and he's dribbling, and my friend is literally screaming, like he is screaming at the top of his lungs. He's like, pass, 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 and then Dame pulls up, and I'll never forget it. My friend goes, no, no, he's screaming, no, and then the ball goes in, and he just turns and stares at me, and he goes, just screaming. He grabs his shirt and like rips off his shirt, and he just starts like flexing and screaming. He's like, wow, wow, like just right screaming. And his daughter, she was like maybe 1 or 2 at a time, she comes running into the room, and she's like totally confused, and he's like picking her up and like all this stuff, and I'll never forget. It was such a roller coaster moment, the low to the high. I've mentioned this many, many times, but being in a park in Yokohama, Japan, the Stanley Cup playoffs were kind of happening over my Japan trip in 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023. That whole time, the Stanley Cup playoffs were happening. And it was the final, Vegas versus Florida, and I'd only really been able to watch box scores to that point. I'd watch highlights wake up at Ardell at night and all this stuff. But I'm sitting in a park bench in Yokohama, and I'm watching Game 5 against the Florida Panthers, and I'm just sitting there because we were waiting for I believe we had a reservation for Team Lab Planets, and we were waiting for that. So I was like watching the game, and all of a sudden like we're up, we're winning, and I remember just, Vegas, we finally, year 1 and getting so close, and then the heartbreak in year 2 with the major and all this do, and then boom, winning the Stanley Cup there in year 6. And I just, being in my dream destination, the favorite place I've ever been in my entire life, being in Japan, a place that I desperately hope and pray that I'm able to move to someday. And then having that moment happen, one of my happiest moments as a sports fan. Sorry, weird noises. But having that high, that as a championship win, probably the best championship win, the one that was most meaningful to me as a fan of any of my teams. And I just being there, and it was a fantastic experience. And then being on like the Japanese Wi-Fi box and trying to connect to the Vegas team store like as soon as the game ended to buy merch, and I got some limited edition posters and signs and things like that. The team photo at the Stanley Cup, I just absolutely loved it. I'm trying to think. Televised sporting events, and the other things that come to mind. At the moment, nothing is. I think for me, those are the ones that really stand out as these were the big ones. These were, those are the ones that to me are memories lodged in, that are hopefully hopefully never going anywhere. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of your favorite, your best, most memorable sporting moments? Either ones you were there for in person or ones that you watched on TV with friends, by yourself, whatever else. I'd love to hear that. But anyways, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Just give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Until next time.